Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
Now, having completed our meditation, let's take a moment to establish our refuge. So for those of you who would care to join us, let's take a moment to bring to mind the Buddha in the space in front of us and establish our refuge, cultivating bodhicitta. Let us begin. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right, well, so good to be with you, even virtually today, first day of June 2023. I am recording today as I am traveling, so I didn't have much confidence that I would be at my destination by the time the teaching begins. So I just woke up early and made sure I had an opportunity to record this today. We are currently on the 8th verse of the 8 verses of thought transformation. These very pith instructions on transforming our daily life into the path of awakening. There's so much in these verses to unpack. In this portion of the text, they're just brief commentary. It's an idea of giving us a framework with which to work. The first 7 verses that we've covered are all directed at cultivating bodhicitta, great compassion. And as you have noted, and as we've discussed, they all are directly pointing at and focused on counteracting our self-cherishing attitude, arising from misunderstanding, misperception, and creating so much suffering in our lives and in the lives of others. So really directed right at that source of suffering, which, by the way, is very different than self-worth and value as this rare and precious life that we have. The self-cherishing is actually the source of our pain and suffering, our insecurities, our fears, our resentments, all of this that is grasping onto ourselves in a way we don't exist, seeking happiness and things that can't give it to us, and creating an incredible amount of pain and suffering as a result. So those first 7 verses are just antidotes to that way of being. And it's not like we, read all 7, got it, no problem. It's that we take a little time to really nurture them, reflect upon them, apply these 3 wisdoms to them. And those 3 wisdoms, as a reminder, is the first wisdom's hearing the teaching, right? Receiving the teaching, reading about them, receiving commentary on them, studying them. That's one. That we gain that first wisdom. But as we all know, that wisdom can come and go a week later. What was that verse again? What was the meaning? The second wisdom is then we analyze it, we contemplate it, we tear it apart, we see if it holds up, we really go after it. Does this make sense? Does it hold up? How does this apply in my life? What's it look like in action? And so this deeper contemplation and reflection then gives rise to a realization about that to some degree. And then the third wisdom is to meditate on that realization, to stabilize it. So each of these verses we could, spend months or lifetimes on to really go through this process of these three wisdoms. So it's something that I've encouraged people to do is, take a week, on one verse and just each morning take a little time, soak it in, reflect upon it, contemplate it. See how you might apply that in your life on the day that awaits you. Bring it into your day. Pause, stop several times during the day. Read the verse, remind yourself. See how it applies in your actions and interactions. See how it may benefit you or not. And then in the evening, bring it up again, meditate on that verse. And then, work with one verse for a week. See how that goes. Now you might decide, do it again for another week. Or you might go, well, let me look at this next verse. Go through that for a week. I myself spent quite a bit of time on just the first one. I mean, if we get the first one to some degree of realization, then, it just lays out why we're doing all the others. And we really can recognize how rare and precious this opportunity is and really set that motivation to engage in this process, recognizing the values of others, the support we have, and just the value of it. So, you might be on that first one for a month, who knows, or more. But the idea here is, in this teaching, is they're just giving a short commentary. We've done full retreats on these verses. We've had teachers come and offer commentary on these verses. There's a great commentary by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which I will post today, as we're on the 8th verse, and something you can read and reflect upon. There's a text by His Holiness as well on this. So that's the idea here, is that in this book right here where we're at in approaching the Buddhist path, this is all preparation for engaging then in these Lamrim teachings that we'll be unpacking for quite a while, I do believe, as long as we continue to live and have this rare and precious life. So this is laying the groundwork. So we're just kind of touching upon them. But there's no need to wait till much later on when we're somewhere in that Lamrim to bring them up again. Rather, an opportunity to take a verse, reflect upon it, or contemplate it, meditate on it. See if you can bring it into your life each day. So having said that, let's pop up the 8th verse. I'll bring it to the screen here. I think I will. Yeah, there we go. So the first 7 are focusing on compassion. The 8th is wisdom. So the union of compassion, bodhicitta, and wisdom, unification of these two are how we achieve enlightenment. So they really go hand in hand in this path. So the 8th verse reads like this: without these practices being defiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, I will practice without grasping to release all beings from the bondage of the disturbing, unsubdued mind and karma. So the first part is without these practices being defiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns. So the 8 worldly concerns are what keep us trapped in samsara. And then the wisdom piece. By perceiving all phenomena as illusory, I will practice without grasping, right? Grasping to ourselves and our experience in ways we don't exist, right? That self-grasping, that is the root of samsara. Going to see all phenomena as illusory. Not that they don't exist, they just don't exist in the way that we are perceiving them as so independent. So I'm going to recognize this very subjective experience I'm having without grasping to things in a way they don't exist. So the practice without grasping to release all beings from the bondage, prison of the disturbing, unsubdued mind and karma. And it's really this unsubdued mind and karma that is our samsara experience, this conditioned existence of samsara. So these parts to this quite a bit in this 8th verse, which His Holiness and Bhikshuni Tubden children will touch upon. And as they state here, as they bring up the 8 worldly concerns, many of you may already know them, but just touching upon them. The 8 worldly concerns consist of 4 pairs. We delight, right? We're happy at receiving money and possessions, right? Gain, things I get. And dejection at receiving or at not receiving or losing them. Let me say that again. And dejection, unhappiness at not receiving or when we lose them. So we delight in receiving the things we want, including money, and not very happy or dejected when we don't get them or if we lose them. So it's often just gain or loss, right? I gain the things I like, happy, lose them, not very happy, suffering a lot. Delight with receiving praise and approval, and dejection when receiving criticism or disapproval. So praise or criticism. One's good, one not so good. Delight with fame and good reputation, and dejection when infamous and notorious. So we're really happy when people think highly of us, and not so happy when they don't. And the 4th one here, delight with pleasurable sights, sounds, smells, taste, and tangible objects, and dejection with those that cause unpleasant feelings. Often just translated as pleasure and pain. So we like pleasurable things, sights, sounds, experiences, and not so happy with pain, things that are unpleasant and can actually literally be pain. So these 8 worldly concerns, so the worldly concerns are 8 because it's the 4 pairs, right? Gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and criticism, good reputation, bad reputation. These 8 worldly concerns pollute our virtuous activities. For example, when I sit on a Dharma throne, this is His Holiness speaking, if in the back of my mind there is the thought, did I give a good Dharma talk? Will people praise or criticize me? My mind is polluted with the 8 worldly concerns. Our motivation is it to just be helpful and share the Dharma, or am I now thinking about how others might receive it and what they'll think of me and so forth? Now it's about praise and reputation. So now it's polluted. So let's pause right there because they go right on to the wisdom portion. It's really critical to understand how much the 8 worldly concerns impact our lives. And this, I would suggest, would be the good discussion for today, even after my talk, that you stay on a little bit and discuss with each other. How much of your life are the 8 worldly concerns your primary motivation? So when you wake up in the morning, pretty quickly your mind might go to what's going to feel good. What's good for breakfast? Where's my coffee or my tea? What's the kind I like? What will bring me pleasure? What don't I like? Oh, and what do I have to do today that I don't like? What do I get to do that I do like? I'm going to get dressed today. So what would I wear? What would people think of me if I, does this match? What would people think of me? And, if I wore something like this or something like that? You can see how just right off the bat, we're already including these thoughts of what others would think of us, what, is pleasurable and what's not. We already have good reputation coming in. We already have these thoughts just right off the bat driving our choices. Now, it's obviously pretty appropriate to consider how others will view us. We are going to a meeting and dress appropriately for that meeting, right? So what's going to make the difference between a worldly concern and just a healthy choice to be of benefit to others? Well, to be a benefit to others, it's good to be appropriate to the circumstances we're engaging in. To engage in a day, it's totally okay to have a breakfast that you enjoy rather than one you do not. And so here we need to dig a little deeper at what is my primary motivation. Is my primary motivation to impress others, as His Holiness was talking about the Dharma teaching, or is my primary motivation to be of benefit and productive in this meeting, to learn from others and to share what I might have to offer in ways that are beneficial, regardless of whether they take my opinions or not? And can I deliver it in a way that's skillful, that might allow it to be heard in a meaningful way? So being appropriate, being prepared. Breakfast, sometimes the breakfast that I enjoy might not be the healthy one for my health and situation. And so maybe it'd be a little wiser to select something that would be healthier and support this body that we have. So whether we, get the things we want or don't get the things we want, so how much gain and loss becomes a part of our lives. How much do we sit there and think, oh, I would like to get this? Now, as a matter of fact, Laura and I were reflecting last night on a microphone. We were at a meeting place, and they had this wonderful conference microphone. It picks up everything in the room. People can share from a great distance. It's better than the ones that we currently have for that specific purpose. And, we're like quite impressed. So we'd like to get one of those probably. We looked it up, and it was actually cheaper than the ones we have. It was very affordable. And it's funny because Laura said, "So, are you buying it?" And my thought was, not right now. Actually, we don't have those types of meetings where we have a lot of people in a room at the moment. Um, but here's desire, right? So it's, I think, probably an appropriate thing to get, something that would be beneficial and help share the Dharma and other teachings in a room with many others. Might actually be a good fit for the Dharma Center. See, it not an exact fit right now, but it's affordable. Maybe it's a good buy. So there's a big difference there, being reflective and thinking about, is getting this item, beneficial for others, or wow, look how cool that is. I want one, or what I don't have. Don't particularly need it right now, but it's a good deal. Let's get it. How much of our day is our desire to get the things we want driving the choices that we make? When we look around in our lives, how much of our lives are filled with a lot of stuff that we don't use very often, but we really wanted. Today's lifestyle, garages are often not for cars anymore, they're for the extra stuff. I was just going through my own, where I keep my clothes. It's kind of a wardrobe thing that we have in the room. And I noticed it's hard to fit everything in there. And, many of the clothes that I have, I rarely wear and hanging in the closet. It's time to thin them out, get rid of the things I don't wear very often. But it is interesting how, I have several jackets, and I usually just wear a couple of them. But there's some I think, well, I like that, and I keep that for a little bit. Is that worldly concern or not? So we don't have to. I would suggest that it's valuable to remember that worldly concerns in and of themselves are not necessarily bad. The things that we, gain or loss, pain or pleasure, so forth. It's appropriate to, have a nice, house that is safe and provides comfort and so forth. And to take care of it, right? To have clothes that keep you warm, clothes that are suitable for the work that you do and the way that you engage in life. These things are meaningful for us to live and make good use of this rare and precious life. But what makes it the source of all suffering and samsara is the motivation, the desire. Why do we want these things? And the more that it's me-centered instead of we-centered, well, now we're going to have some problems. And is it okay to take good care of yourself? Sure. Sit in a jacuzzi, relax. Yeah, totally fine. It takes care of our bodies, provides some balance in a lifestyle that can be quite challenging. So self-care is valuable. And so we don't want to, just sit here and think renunciation is, I live in a shed, I have very few things and I don't eat much and so forth. Now, some people can actually turn that lifestyle into pride, ego, spiritual ego and pride, and attachment to that lifestyle. And then that becomes suffering and cause of a great deal of furthering samsara in their lives instead of liberation. Or, I lived a simple life as a monk, wear the robes, didn't really have a house, did, oftentimes have a place I paid rent, small, one room, simple. and all my needs were met, didn't need anything else. And the fewer needs, the greater peace and well-being. And that's the irony here that I suggest we all take a look at. It's so often said that do we own our possessions, or do our possessions own us? How much of our life is spent taking care of all the stuff we have, and how much of that is actually taking us away from how we could be living this life as a Dharma practitioner? And everything in our life can be Dharma. But if we really want peace and ease, simplifying our lives, fewer needs, fewer things to take care of, fewer commitments. And talk about these commitments in terms of all the stuff that we fill our lives with. And why are we doing it? Is it going to help us with liberation, or is it going to help us decorate samsara, a prison cell of samsara, a very nice prison cell? Sometimes looks like wonderful mansions, nice swimming pools. So again, okay to have things, gain and loss, pain and pleasure. It's nice to show up in a way that provides for a good reputation. And it's good to show up in ways that are meaningful. Yeah, we might get some praise, might get some criticism. So these motivators can be both helpful or harmful. It goes to our motivation. Getting the things that we would like, that are supportive of a life that supports our journey of liberation, totally good. Nice warm jackets and clothes that are comfortable and practical and good quality, don't fall apart on you. Very helpful. A job that might pay well, that can offer opportunities for retreat and practice. The problem is we might be chasing all those things at the expense of actually having a practice. And we might be feeding the desires and the worries about what others think of us and so forth. It's tricky business, isn't it? What's our primary motivation? And so if we go back to right intention, the Noble Eightfold Path, right intention, what's our motive, right? What's our motive? And there's 3 that lead to samsara, and there's 3 that lead to liberation. The 3 with samsara are these 3 poisons, right? Attachment, aversion, and ignorance. So sometimes greed, hatred, and ignorance. So is my motivation attachment? Greed? Is my motivation aversion? Don't like that stuff, or hatred? All very self-centered. And is it based on ignorance, misperception? Is it grasping onto something in a way that this will make, the happiness, or this will create all my suffering, externally focused and in a very me-centered view of the world? Or is my motivation the opposite, right? Instead of greed and hatred, are we coming from loving kindness, the desire to have ourselves and others, have some real degree of lasting happiness and well-being, which is focused on virtue, right? What's virtuous here? What's healthy? What allows for the conditions for long-term well-being? Is my motivation compassion? Am I engaging in this with compassion, with the idea of eliminating suffering and struggles in my life and the lives of others? How will this reduce suffering? So the microphone thing, for example, could have been loving kindness motivation. I want a good piece of technology that will help with Dharma and other lessons, that will help produce some degrees of greater understanding and happiness in the world. Could be good to get that microphone. Could also be compassion. It's going to help remove a lot of suffering and help people not get caught up in their afflictions. And the third one, they'll often talk, instead of just saying wisdom, they'll talk about renunciation, speaking from a Theravadan perspective. So renunciation is wisdom in the sense that I'm renouncing the delusional thinking of the eight worldly concerns. I'm renouncing the sense that, this independent John here, and I'm much more an interdependent experience of John that is arising in dependence upon a myriad of causes and conditions, the efforts of others, and understanding that everything I know, everything I have is the result of the labors of others, many who lived centuries ago, including the Dharma that we're having now, provided to us by these great sages that have practiced these teachings and refined them, translated them, all the conditions that have given rise to the homes that we live in, the educations we've received. We are the result of all of this. We're not independent in any way. And that how I feel today is very, transitory. and that I'm always becoming new John, arising in every moment. And tomorrow, different John arising based on the previous John and what I've had as experiences. I'm evolving, I'm always becoming. So that would be a much more accurate understanding of ourselves and our experiences, and knowing that these experiences are subjective. So can I engage in life with this understanding that when I have an experience of anger, it's an experience of anger. I'm not angry. And they're not the cause of my anger. The cause of my anger is within. They're triggering anger, which is an experience that will come and go. And so there's a lot of wisdom there. But when I point the finger, this is the ignorance, is they are making me angry. Well, now I'm caught up in samsara, I'm caught up in misperception. So if we examine our motivations, are we coming from wisdom, from understanding experience, what they call renunciation? Am I coming from compassion to remove suffering? Is this going to remove suffering or help reduce any suffering in the world? Is this coming from a place of virtue? Virtue is the cause for happiness and well-being for ourselves and others. Well, that's a very different experience than, whether we buy something, don't buy a thing, take a vacation, don't take a vacation. All of those things can either be towards this path of liberation or samsara, based on our motivation. And to wrap up this thought, I wanted to bring up a quote by Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, which I came upon the other day and I just really liked. And it says, "Don't be like that." Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. Expecting a lot from people, you do a lot of smiling. Needing many things for yourself, you have many needs to meet. Making plans to do first this, then that, your mind's full of hopes and fears. From now on, come what may, don't be like that. Yeah. Let us instead come from a place of loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom. All right. Well, I did want to allow a little time for you all to discuss a little bit about these eight worldly concerns and kind of parse out where we're creating samsara, decorating this samsara, or cutting through samsara. and where the same actions could be motivated from a worldly concern point of view, or the same action of getting something or losing something could be your spiritual practice. So I will pause it there and invite all of you to stay on a bit, discuss with each other, and then I'll invite Rachel to share the dedication. You can all dedicate the merit together. I do want to thank you for all the good that you bring to the world. Remind you that we'll have the monks on the 23rd of June this month through the 28th. We are doing a little fundraiser to help support the monastery. They create this salmon doll, and we try to make this really nice offering to pay for their efforts, when all of that goes to support the monastery back in India to keep this tradition alive. So if you can help out in any way, please do. And if you can make it out for the events, please come. The other little fundraiser we have is t-shirts and hoodies. So the idea is that for certain offerings, you'll get a t-shirt, Way of Compassion Dharma Center. And we have some new zip-up hoodies, and so I want to offer those. So you can take a look at our website, and I think it's posted on the community. But either way, as my teacher always said, make sure your needs are met first before you make offerings. Start there. All right, please be well, take good care of yourselves, and good care of those around you.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu